Welcome back to The Lawyer You Know, and today we've got a special episode because we're bringing in a guest, Brittany Alexander, who is a property insurance lawyer, because the reason we started this channel was to let people know their rights that they usually don't know without somebody explaining them to you. So we are going to answer a ton of questions surrounding what to do to prepare for a hurricane, what you should have in your insurance policy, what you should do after, and when you should do it, which are all important questions when dealing with damage done to your property or your house in a hurricane, especially in our home state of Florida. Brittany is a lawyer in Florida, so we're going to jump to my discussion with her regarding property damage and especially hurricane claims. All right, we're here with Brittany Alexander, our property lawyer, plaintiff's property lawyer, dealing with property damage, dealing with disputes, focusing on hurricane damage, especially on houses today. That's what we're here to talk about. But before we get into that, you've been on the show before, but why don't you tell everybody listening what it is that property lawyers do? What is your focus? What do you do to help people?
Specifically property insurance lawyers. So I help property owners when their insurance companies don't pay or don't pay enough for their insurance claims.
Right. So it's not real
In a
estate.
nutshell.
It's not necessarily buying, selling houses, that type of property lawyer, but it is actually suing insurance companies dealing with property disputes, right? So that's a better way of saying it.
Correct.
So we are both Florida lawyers. And as we know, Florida deals with hurricanes every year. I think the average is like 12 hurricanes come through, 3 or 4 of them are major every year. Talk a little bit about how hurricanes affect your business and what you see when hurricanes kind of come through, how that affects what you do for homeowners.
Right. So like I said, I help homeowners, property owners, business owners, anybody who has a piece of property that's insured by an insurance company. And when that property gets damaged, insured makes a claim, insurance company doesn't pay, that's when we step in. And so the property damage can be caused by all sorts of reasons, accidents. I've had cases where people have driven right through the wall of the house. Those are kind of freak accidents. Most of the damage we deal with happens because of weather. And like you said, we're in Florida. Weather is everything all the time. It's hot, it's raining, there's storms, there's wind. That's what causes damage to homes, to property normally. So, a hurricane comes through, damages a roof. The way that roofs work, there's tiles, shingles, flat roofs, wind, rain, I'll push and kind of break the roofing system in all sorts of ways. And so when that happens, there's damage to the home. It needs to be fixed. You need to replace the roof, repair the interior if water leaks in the interior. So those are the big things that happen when big storms come. And that's kind of how we help people, property owners, homeowners, with their property damage, with their insurance claims.
So do people have to have specific insurance on their homeowners insurance policies that cover hurricanes? Are there any policies that deny or exclude hurricane damage? How does that work specifically dealing with hurricanes?
So this is a great question because most people don't ever look at their insurance policies. So most people have a simple HO3 policy that covers their house that says we cover everything, all sudden accidental loss to property, except for these certain things. And then there's a list of exclusions. I'm sure it's the same in personal injury dealing with car, auto policies and health insurance and whatnot, but there's all sorts of exclusions as to what doesn't apply. So sometimes you have policies where it's wind only. You bought the policy specifically for wind damage. That's wind only, right? Or you buy a policy specifically for flood, only covers flood. But mostly with policies, especially in Florida, you'll have, a hurricane deductible, obviously meaning that insurance policy will cover wind damage, hurricane damage, tropical storm damage.
So when we talk about that deductible that you have, or specifically flood insurance policies, because that's big around here, because depending on what zone you're in, where I'm at in Tampa Bay, some are really high flood zones where you have to pay a lot for flood insurance. Other, you don't have to have any. So how does that work with hurricanes? Is it any flood across the board? Does a hurricane change it if a hurricane comes through and floods your house? And especially for that hurricane deductible, what if it's just a normal storm that knocks down a power line, hits your house, or blows through a window, or something happens? Does it matter if it's categorized as a hurricane?
So with flood, the typical HO3 policy is not going to cover flood. Specifically flood water, groundwater, it's excluded. So that's why if you're in a flood,
right?
Exactly. That's why if you're in a flood area, you have to get flood insurance because your normal property insurance isn't going to cover it. So yes, not covered by normal insurance. You need to get a separate policy for it. As for the deductible, so there are policies that are written that say hurricane deductible and then all other perils. So there's two different deductibles. The reason being is that hurricanes are often more destructive and can cause more damage, more expensive, and so usually it's a higher deductible for the hurricane. Those are only calendar year. So if 3 hurricanes come through and damage your roof, that deductible can only be applied one time, even though there's 3 separate claims. So it's a calendar year deductible. However, some policies say hurricane or windstorm deductible. Some of them even just say wind deductible, which is, right? Exactly. So it's any kind of storm where you're claiming wind damage, even if it's not named. So tropical storm, cyclone, a pop-up storm, which is just, regular thunderstorm, that would apply too. So it depends on what it says actually in the policy, if it says hurricane or wind.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that flood insurance is only areas where it does flood, like sinkhole insurance is only areas where there's not sinkholes. Like we don't cover it because we don't want to have to get that hit here. And the flood insurance is only areas it gets flood. So you have to pay even more above your homeowner's insurance, which most people think, I would think that would be covered. Like that's one of the major ways in Florida your house would get destroyed would be a flood. And my normal homeowner's insurance doesn't cover that. A lot of people don't know that. So I think it's a good point to point out the fact that you have to get extra insurance most of the time for flood.
So most people just like get their insurance policy and they look at the front page, the deck page, and they say, oh, great, I've got dwelling coverage for 500,000, I'm good. But they don't realize there's 50 other pages in there that explain when they're actually covered, why the insurance company won't pay, when they would pay, that determines when that 500,000 applies. So important to look at your actual policy.
Yeah, and a lot of times you have an agent or somebody helping you work through it. Well, they'll ask you some questions or they'll give you something to fill out that'll send back to them. That'll help them get that information. But a lot of times you have to do your own research, and it's becoming a day and age where Google, YouTube, that type of research, you can get so much knowledge from that'll help you with the questions to ask when you're looking at your insurance policy and make sure you're actually covered, as opposed to, oh, this is the policy I need for homeowners insurance. Anything gets damaged in my house, great. I'll sign right here and I should be good to go.
Exactly.
All right. So when we have these hurricanes come through, everybody freaks out, right? There's meteorologists that are famous on Facebook that put all their rules up. Dennis Phillips, I think, is a guy near us that does that stuff, has tons of followers, and they have fun with it. But from your perspective, when we're talking about property damage that can happen with a hurricane, what do you tell people? What do you tell your clients? What do you tell your friends to do in preparation for a hurricane? Maybe not even tie everything down, but how do I prepare for if something gets damaged, the aftermath that will come?
Before you even get to tying down your furniture or throwing it in the pool or whatever people are doing these days, before even a storm is on its way and you're looking at spaghetti models on the Weather Channel, just get a pre-storm inspection. Like before the season happens, preferably, but before a major storm comes for sure, get a pre-storm inspection, meaning you have somebody either get on your roof or get a drone up there, take some pictures, see if there's any damage existing, because A, you're going to want to know if there's damage up there so you can repair it before a storm comes. And B, if a storm does come and it does cause damage, you want to have those pictures of the condition of the house, exterior and interior, prior to the storm. So you can say, hey, look, this is what my house looked like a week ago before the storm, and here's what my house looks like now. Like clearly there was damage caused by the storm, and the insurance company can't try to nitpick areas and try to apply exclusions that you would have to proof against.
They're my insurance company. They wouldn't do that.
Oh yeah, my insurance company are so good. They would never deny me it.
Where does somebody find something like that? Where do they find somebody to do that?
So you can find them online. You can ask, people in your community that there's plenty of roofers that will do free inspections for you to make sure that you don't need any repairs. Handyman. I mean, you could even just go around the exterior of your house and the interior with a phone, video, the condition of the walls, the ceilings, inside the closets, in your garage. I don't really recommend anybody get on their own roof unless you're a professional, but have somebody else get on the roof, get in the attic, let you know if there's anything going on that you need to, be aware of.
So when you say that, it doesn't even have to be official. It's just making sure you have everything documented as to how your house is and the state that your house is in prior to the storm coming.
Exactly. Just documentation.
And again, that's the type of stuff I'm looking for, right? Because we're lawyers. This is what we do. We're not necessarily going to tell people the proper way to board up their windows or throw their furniture in the pool, like you said. But what we're going to say is how you protect yourself from the insurance company coming back and saying, oh, that was probably already there before the storm. Because I'm sure you hear stories like that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I mean, being a native Floridian, I mean, I've lived here my entire life. I've gone through, I don't even know how many hurricanes. I don't think we've ever boarded up the windows, so I think it's a level of comfort, whatever you want to do, bring your light furniture and outside furniture inside, make sure that you've got supplies and whatnot. I mean, we've all been hearing that for years. Have batteries, have candles, have a generator, whatever you're comfortable with. What I would also say from an insurance and a damage perspective is if during the storm you see damage occurring, so you see a leak or you see a stain like the day after or something, same thing, document that. If you could safely do so, if you're not in danger, if your body is not in danger and you see damage happening during the storm, I would document that immediately and then do what you can to mitigate it. You don't have to make any, extreme changes right away, but just do what you can to mitigate and document so you have something to show your insurance company when it's safe for them to come inspect.
Right. And by mitigate, you just mean try to keep it from getting worse, or try to, if you see
Exactly.
the window is broken, if you can put something up over it safely, like you said, then maybe try to do that. So also, I think something that's interesting I've seen in some of the storms where like a Ring camera or Vivint camera will pick up damage being done to the house and you could save that footage. And those, I think, are the really important things from our perspective that you can do to make sure you're protecting yourself. Because now I want to talk about, what do you do after, right? What do you tell your clients or your friends? I'm sure you have friends and family members that are people like me that ask you questions like this all the time, because we get it too when it deals with car accidents. Let's say damage has occurred, right? And you can play two scenarios for us. What do you do if you have done that pre-inspection like you advised? And then what do you do if you haven't and you can't prove what your house looked like before?
So right after a storm, whether you see visible damage or not, so what I would do right after a storm is, like, if it's safe, you do an inspection of your own home, walk around, there's going to be debris everywhere. If you see home materials like tiles or shingles or any type, part of your home in the ground, before you even pick it up, take a picture, say, hey, I found this tile here. I found this, this shingle blew off. So you have a documentation of it. So that helps if you didn't have a pre-storm inspection, but you see debris everywhere, you've got branches all over the place, video or take pictures of everything as is when you're kind of doing your inspection on the outside and on the inside. Look at all of your ceilings to make sure there's no staining, no wet areas, feel your walls to make sure nothing's wet there. So kind of do your own post inspection to see, what's going on in the interior, document it 100%. If you have damage, probably time to report it. You can talk to a public adjuster or an attorney, me, prior to reporting it to, make sure that you're actually doing the right thing by reporting it and whatnot. But that's 100% what you should do. Once it's safe, inspect your own home. Now, I will say, if you don't notice any damage, so if you walk around and you say, oh, I've got some tree branches down, but it's no big deal, I would say that you should probably still get a post-storm inspection. And the reason being is I can't even tell you how many claims of, homeowners who they don't see any staining, got things leaking, and they're like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I got through, I was lucky. But they didn't realize that there were, 50 broken tiles on their roof, and they just, none of the water made it through the roofing system in the attic to the interior, so they don't see any of it manifested yet. But then what happens is, 6 months later, when we're in the spring and we go through that rainy season that we always get in Florida, all of a sudden they've got 1 leak,
Right.
2 leaks, 3 leaks all popping up now. And they're like, I don't know what this is from. Well, it's from the hurricane. And that's not good that you've waited so long because it got worse. And your insurance company is going to think, oh, this is fishy that it took so long for them to report it.
Yeah. And
That's
what
why I
was gonna
always
say.
do the inspection. Mm-hmm.
Is it like a car accident where, for lack of a better term, if you don't use it, you lose it, to where damage has happened and now it's been 6 months? How can you prove it didn't happen from one of our other million thunderstorms that have come through, or something else that you did, or just the age of your home? Do you have a lot of issues with that if people wait to report damage, or like you said, it may not be readily apparent to them that there is damage from the hurricane if they don't get an inspection?
Yeah, exactly. There is a problem with it because if you wait a long amount of time, it does, if you report something a week after a
Right.
storm, it's kind of like common sense. Okay, if you're going to talk to a jury and say, hey, this was reported a week after a storm, there was active leaks. All right, well, that was probably from the hurricane. But if it's 6 months later, 7 months later, a year later, it becomes more difficult. And yes, you can use experts and your own engineers to say, hey, do you think this is from the hurricane? But then insurance company has their own experts too. So it becomes a battle as to like, who has the better expert, whose opinion it makes more sense, which is just difficult. So to save the headache of that, definitely get the post-storm inspection so you can report as soon as possible. And on the flip side of that, not knowing about damage doesn't cover you. Even if something is happening for months and months and months, that's not covered. Long-term damage is not covered by the policy. So that's not good for the homeowner either.
Yeah, and I think that that's an interesting thing to think about when you have these issues and cases that affects the value of your claim. So even if you had X amount of damage done to your house, you have these issues. So you're going to advise clients, listen, we may not get full value on this to fix everything because of the time you waited. So even if you are able to get something for them, usually it's not the full value of the claim, which people have to realize if they do wait to do the inspection or see the problem that actually occurred. So I think that's important for people to know, just that haven't gone through the process and think, oh, I'm going to get 100% of my claim no matter when I make my claim. Throughout the process, are there times, or what would your advice be? Because I've heard it different from different lawyers, but what would your advice be if somebody does have damage done by a hurricane? Would you say to start by calling you and you help them through the process, or should they try to make that claim themselves, and why or why not?
I think it's always good to have a professional on your side, because as soon as you report something to an insurance company, as soon as you call in, somebody picks up the phone, the person on the other end of the phone, they're already trained. They've been through this process hundreds, possibly thousands of times to ask you all the questions that the insurance company needs to potentially be able to deny. They are sending out an adjuster to do an inspection on their behalf, who's probably inspected hundreds, if not thousands, of homes, looking for certain things of, when is a claim covered, when is it not covered. So insurance company already has their professionals. They are a business. They are in the business of making money. That's what an insurance company is. So they already have their professionals. It would behoove a homeowner, especially somebody who is not familiar with the process, to have somebody else in their corner who is familiar with the process, who knows what to do, what to say, how to handle it, has gone through hundreds, if not thousands of claims as well, to be able to match the expertise of the insurance company.
And it doesn't cost them anything, right?
Right.
So I mean, they can call you, have you working on it from the jump with them, and it doesn't cost them anything out of pocket. That's what I think is so great about the contingency fee. I know yours is a little bit different than mine, but that whole world where they don't have to pay you out of pocket up front, there's a reason for that. The law doesn't just do that out of the goodness of their heart. The reason is because of this process, they realize that if you had to pay somebody out of pocket, you wouldn't do it, and then you'd be screwed.
Right.
So in order to protect your rights as a homeowner in your situation, you're allowed to do this, and it's covered. Like the insurance company's going to end up paying at the end if they don't do the right thing.
So I think it's even the playing field between the big insurance company with all the resources in the world and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who live in their home, just take care of it, make a decent wage. It wouldn't be able to fight this big insurance company without that contingency fee.
And these things get kicked around in committee meetings by lawyers for years before they become law. This is not just how it always was. This is the way it is with these fees, and the insurance company having to pay them if they do the wrong thing. That's in place because they needed to level the playing field, right? With people like you that can help from the beginning of the process versus some homeowners trying to do it themselves. So it's not some like slimy scheme by property insurance or plaintiffs' lawyers. It's literally just to make sure everything's copacetic, everything's above board, and the insurance company doesn't try anything, right?
Right, exactly. And what I would also say is, it's even better because the plaintiff's lawyer, the homeowner's lawyer is incentivized. We're incentivized to, achieve a decent outcome, a good outcome for our clients, because we don't get paid unless they get paid. So it works out all across.
We could do a whole other video on that, and the fact that we don't get paid hourly for the case to go on for 50 years, how that's actually good for our clients versus lawyers that get paid hourly and like for cases to last forever.
Exactly.
So we talk a lot about hurricanes, right? That's what happens a lot in Florida. It could be happening right now while somebody's watching the video, obviously, because during hurricane season, do you know when hurricane season is? I know it's like half the year.
June to November, I believe.
So June to November, so 5 months-ish.
5 months, but like the biggest part is like mid-August to mid-October, like that 2 month stint. That's when we historically have gotten our biggest claims. Like I think Hurricane Andrew was sometime in mid-August and Irma was in mid-September. So I mean, those are two of our biggest hurricanes in the last 20 years. So
how do insurance companies react when a hurricane comes, does a lot of damage, and they know there's going to be a lot of claims? Are they more likely to pay out, or are they harder on those claims?
I think they're more likely the closer it is in time to the storm. For many reasons. I mean, one being it's more apparent if it's the closer in date and somebody's claiming damage right now. How are they going to argue it wasn't from the storm? Unless it's really, really obvious. Also, I'm sure reputationally they don't want to be seen as the insurance company coming to a place where people are, their homes are in shambles and they're saying, no, sorry, we can't go cover this. That doesn't look good either. So I'm sure from a business perspective and just a pure facts perspective, it's easier to get them to cover it the closer it is in time.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense as far as the line goes to report it soon after you see it and look and do that inspection post hurricane, because that's your best chance to get that claim paid, right?
Yep.
So I think some of the important takeaways just kind of in the video as a whole would be: do a pre-inspection before the hurricane, either professionally or yourself. Try to document the damage as it's happening or soon after, and make the claim sooner than later. It's not going to hurt you to make that claim. Oh, there's one thing I want to finish with, and call a professional to help you with it. It doesn't cost you anything extra. I think those are kind of the important takeaways from it, just from somebody who owns property and this could happen to them, right? So I think that's the important takeaways from the video. I do have one last question, because people always ask me this on their car accident cases. How does this affect your premiums and your rates if you make a claim, if you have to file a lawsuit for a claim, if your insurance company pays out? How does that affect the premiums, the rates, things like that? Can your insurance company cancel you?
And disclaimer, I'm not an agent. I don't work for an insurance company, so I don't know the exact inner workings.
Just your experience. What have you seen with your clients?
And what I know from my experience and talking to people who are actuaries for insurance companies, there's so many factors that go into what you pay for your premium. Things that don't even really, you can't so much control, like the age of your house, when the roof is last put on, the mixture in the materials on your roof, and whether that company is still in business. I mean, there's so many things that go into play there, and nobody can stop a hurricane. So it doesn't necessarily count against you, as long as you're maintaining your property properly. If a hurricane comes and damages your roof, well, that's just the luck of the draw, really. You know what I mean? We can't stop a hurricane from coming. You can do what you can to mitigate. You can do what you can to maintain your property. And as long as you do that, you'll be fine. It's not going to skyrocket your premium. There are other things that are skyrocketing premiums right now. The insurance company is asking for, an increase in rates, really. But in terms of a storm coming and someone making a claim for valid damage, that's not going to all of a sudden increase your rates dramatically.
So what I like to tell people, because car accidents can be a little bit different. If you're at fault, your rates are going to go up, right? But what I also like to tell them is my rates go up all the time, and I'm not doing anything to make them go up. They just go up. From homeowners insurance perspective, never made a claim ever on any of the properties that I've owned. And my primary residence homeowners insurance is canceling me in 60 days because they're no longer writing policies in this area. I think they mentioned hurricanes and the storms. So now I've got to find a new policy in the next 60 days so I can get a new insurance company to come in. And my agent said, yeah, prices are a little higher now than they were then. So the price you would have had is not going to be what you have now. It just happens. Like, that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
You have to realize what you said before. They're a business. They're there to make money. They're going to find every opportunity they can to make money. And they know people have that fear of making claims that it's going to increase their rates, but that's why you have insurance, right? Mm-hmm. So your answer was not, this is what I didn't hear you say. Yes, if you make a claim, your insurance is automatically going to go up based on that claim, based on how much they pay. It goes up by this many cents based on how many dollars they pay you. That's not how it works, right? We can at least be on the same page with that.
Exactly. Yeah. For hurricane claims, for named storm claims, it's not going to all of a sudden, okay, well, this person made a claim, let's jack their rates up because, they're high risk. Well, that's the area you live in. Whether you made a claim or not, it's probably going to go up.
That's why it's so expensive. They have really smart people that figure out how much we should pay in Florida because they know hurricanes can hit, right? I'm sure you have experience that. I know you go to a bunch of conferences around property damage and roofing and all this stuff. They compute these numbers with that known risk, right? It's not a surprise when a storm hits Florida.
Yeah, like I said, so many factors that they take into account to create your premium. Yeah, 100%.
Right. So I think this is awesome. I've learned a lot. I'm sure a lot of people watching learned a lot. I appreciate you coming on as always to talk property damage with us. We're going to put all your information in somewhere in the comments, in the body of the video, whatever, on Instagram, so that when the storms come through, if you just have some questions, want to pick her brain, need her help filing a claim, we're going to put all Brittany's information. Brittany, thanks for being with us. It was fun.
Thanks, Peter. It's at lawyer.britt with 2 T's on Instagram. That's where people can find me all the time. Give me all the questions for their home insurance. But thank you for having me on. This has been great.
And you post a ton of videos just giving all sorts of tips, not just on this topic, but other property topics that they can check out there as well. But you're also available for specific questions, especially when a hurricane hits Florida.
Yep, got it.
Cool. Thanks so much. That was awesome.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you like this content, please share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to our page and like our videos. If you want some interaction, get in the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to know any more information about our firm or this page, you can find out in the description or visit Trgaoslaw.com. We post multiple times throughout the week, so make sure you hit that bell so you can get the notification and not miss out on the next episode.